Bear with me because I am going to start in a minute. I'm just checking that I'm okay. Right, okay, good. Right, I'm here. What I'm going to be doing is a slideshow, and I'm going to be talking on the North Node and the South Node in astrology. I study evolutionary astrology, and what we do in evolutionary astrology, and I'm just going to show this book in the corner of the screen, may be difficult, but I'll show it at the end of the show as well, is that I've got Pluto, and this is Jeff Wolf Green. And for anybody who's studying astrology, I highly recommend this book. So it's Pluto, Jeff Wolf Green, Pluto 1. And in evolutionary astrology, we look at Pluto and then we look at the nodes. I'm just going to make sure that I can be heard as well. So if anybody can give me a heads up, I can see I've got 2 people watching. So if somebody can just say, yeah, they can hear me, that would be great. If not, I'm just going to continue anyway. So what we have is that we have the North Node and the South Node in astrology, and I'm going to go through my slideshow. What we've got is that on an astrology chart, what you're going to see are 2 symbolisms which look like I have on the screen. And this is the South Node is like a cup, and the North Node is, you know, it looks a bit like an octopus, this one, but we can see that the nodes, we've got the North Node, which is where my pointer is now, and then we have the South Node. So on an astrology chart, depending on where you accessed yours from, I got mine from astro.com, which I'm going to show you in a minute. So you'll be able to see the symbolism, and then we'll go into what it means. But if you remember that the South Node is like a cup, it's like, you know, something that contains all of the past, all of our past imprints and memories. And the North Node is where we're heading to. It's like the things that we're walking towards, but we cannot separate the North Node and the South Node. We have to integrate them. So we've come in with gifts, we've come in with dispositions, and we've come in with, you know, our problems and our fears from past life. And we've also, and this life as well, from our early imprinting in childhood, we've got fears and anxieties and self-doubts and issues around codependency, and all of this can be seen in a chart. So you can see we've got the North Node and the South Node, and these are very important symbols in an astrology chart. Now, this is my chart, and if you haven't got one or you don't know what astrology is, you can always chat to me as I'm talking through this video. If you wish to chat, then we'll be looking to see if there's any messages as I go. So this is my natal chart, and on the inside of the wheel are the planets where they fell when I was born. And then on the outside of the chart, you have the transits, and this is where the planets are today. So this chart I've pulled up is mine, 24th of October 2019. So the transits on the outside are where the planets were at on the 24th of October 2019. Now the transits tell us what's being activated and what's happening, and the general flavor of what our life is like at the moment, where we're struggling and where we're having, you know, better times, and where we are evolving, if that makes sense. So the moon, you can see up here, you can see it's by my MC. That was on the 24th of October 2019. And the moon takes 28 days to move around a chart, but the moon up here is going to be in Scorpio. We're going to have a full moon Scorpio tomorrow. Actually, yeah, we're going to have a full moon, and it's going to be in Scorpio. So if you look on your chart where Scorpio is, 4 degrees of Scorpio, that's where the moon is falling for you. But this video is about the North Node and the South Node, so I'm going to continue with that. So on my chart, you can see that my North Node, the symbolism is here, 25 degrees, and it's conjuncting my DC, the descendant, is conjuncting my Sun by 5 degrees, and it's conjuncting my Mercury, and it's also my Mars. And then if we go across from the North Node and we look to the other side, we've got the South Node, which is past life. So my South Node is in Scorpio. But the important thing is when we're looking at a chart, we're doing integration. We're not just looking at one thing. So I know that I'm a North Node Taurus, and that my South Node past life is Scorpio. But Also, we're looking at the house that it's in. So I'm taking into account that I'm a Taurus North Node, but also that North Node is falling in the 6th house. So when I look at astrology, or I'm looking at my nodes, I'm going to take into account both things. And you're going to have to do this for yourself as well. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you've got your North Node transiting, or not transit, your North Node at birth. Let's say your North Node at birth is in Pisces. So Pisces would be down here. So you would look to the polarity and see that your South Node would be in Virgo. It would be opposite because the nodes are always opposite each other. And then what you would do is you would look at the house it was in. So if I was the North Node Pisces, for instance, let's say on this chart, then I would look at the node in Pisces, see what the polarity is and where my South Node is, and then I would know that it's in my 4th house as an example. So I would look at the 4th house, and then I would also look at the polarity, which would be Virgo. But for me, if you've got your own chart, you can do this too. And if you haven't got one, then you're able to pull one up on www.astro.com. But you do need your time of birth. But for the nodes, actually, we don't need so much the time of birth. I'm going to explain to you, if you haven't got your time of birth, how you can still know where your node would be, the past life and this life, North Node. So next slide. So what you're going to do, I access this, I want to say this, at the bottom of this chart, you can see this where my pointer is. This is where I got this information from drstanley.com, astrology charts, North and South Node dates. So you can access that on Google. You just need to put that in, you know, North Node, South Node. Where is my North Node, South Node with your date of birth? And you're going to find it. So if you were, you know, I'm a Taurus North Node, so you can see here that anybody that was born between February 20th, 1966 and the August 19th, 1967 is going to have a Taurus North Node and a Scorpio South Node. Now let's take another example. If you were born between 1973 and 1975, October 27th, 1973 to July 9th, 1975, then you would have a Sagittarius North Node and a South Node in Gemini. So you look at this chart and you can define what you are if you don't know, okay? I hope I'm making sense to anybody who's watching. Any questions, do ask. So what I'm going to do now is read. I've got this picture. This is the North Node in Aries. Whoops, no, it isn't. It's North Node in Aries, 1st house, and South Node in Libra in the 2nd house. So I'm going to read it, and if you've got any questions as I go, then you're going to be able to ask me. Okay. So if you've got the North Node in Aries in the 1st house, here you're to follow one's own destiny, to be aware and not to let others direct you totally. You need to integrate into your life in a way that you do not lose yourself. So you integrate, you have a life where you're not going to lose yourself in other people. If you have the North Node in Aries in the 1st house, North Node in Aries or the 1st house. And you're learning about self-nurturance in this placement. It's about being independent and having courage. And it's learning to trust your own impulses and to acquire constructive self-interest and to learn moderation in giving to others. Really important to listen to what this is saying, because it's, you know, really going to help you to sort of navigate your life better. So Aries, the 1st house, is about me. What do I want? And looking after self. So it's the 1st house in the astrology sign and in an astrology chart in the natural zodiac. It's the 1st house. My 1st house, when we know our rising sign, my 1st house is you know, Scorpio. I'm Scorpio rising. So we can begin to integrate and understand. Can I ask, is anybody who's watching there where your North Node is, if you know, or if you don't know, or if you're wondering where it is? But I would be really fascinated to know if you want to tell me. Then what we would look at is the South Node, because we want to integrate and we want to look at any problems that we may have there or dispositions that are not helpful to us. So if you have the South Node, if you have the North Node in Aries in the 1st house, then your South Node is going to be in Libra or the 7th house. So here we've got being social. It's about you. It was about being social with joint ideas, perspectives, and opinions. It's a lifetime of other people. It was a lifetime of other people's ideas and opinions. And here you would have had the ability to understand where other people were coming from and a gift of dealing with other people's needs. So we got to, you can see there, Libra, 7th house, it's really about others and past life. You would have, you know, had been graceful and balanced. And here you need to release any codependency and false pride. It's about selflessness, you know, getting rid of selflessness that weakens you, and being, you know, stop being overly nice. It's really important to, you know, that we can be overly nice. That's not really good for us. It's like, we need to look at that. And it also, you can be over, it would have been about being over the top with regard to attachment to fairness and justice. So it's like just being too much over the top in that area. So then you want to work out, it's like, how are you going to integrate that? Really important to think about this. I would also say that anybody that's interested in this list, you'll email the PDF that I wrote up to anybody that's interested in this information as well. Should you wish, you can email me or come over to Facebook and ask me over there. So the next one is the North Node in Taurus, 2nd house, or the 2nd house, and the South Node in Scorpio, the 8th house. So you can see that this would apply to me because I've got the North Node in Taurus, but remember I said I've also got the North Node, it's in my 6th house. So I'm also going to be looking at that for myself too. If you don't understand that part of what I'm saying, you just need to ask me again. If you've got any questions, then fire away in the chat box and I can see them. So the North Node, if you've got the North Node in Taurus, 2nd house, which I have, I've got it in the 6th house though, if that makes sense. I just said that. So it's about finding security for self. It's about self-reliance, self-realization, and sustaining oneself. It's keeping one's own identity, not getting lost in codependence, making sure that you are not completely dependent on others, and learning to share and sharing of resources without the loss of self, being loyal, having awareness of boundaries, and taking things one step at a time to establish a sense of self-worth and to look and have awareness of one's personal values. Okay, here we also have to practice patience, to honor the expressed needs of self and others, and to enjoy all of the physical senses, to garner gratitude in your thinking, and to incorporate forgiveness where you can and where needed, and to learn to be persistent and to enjoy the beauty that surrounds us. Okay, so continuing reading now to what the South Node means. If you've got Taurus North Node or 2nd house, you're going to look at the South Node in Scorpio or the 8th house. And this basically, South Node in Scorpio is to do with loss, abandonment and betrayal. It's like one has the qualities of being also sensuous and dramatic. And also the South Node is a detective who is, they want to know who people are. They want to know what's real and they want to know what's fake. What we need to do if we have this placement, the South Node in Scorpio or the 8th house, we need to release drama, the drama in our lives, and release, you know, stop taking big risks and drop the hiding of ourselves and being overly suspicious. Also, it's about releasing the attraction to crisis situations and also releasing over concern with other people's business. So not being overly concerned with other people's business, like being a full-on detective. It's like, oh, somebody just said here, let's see. Hi, will you be discussing the aspects made to the North Node? Yes, I'll have a little look at that as well. I will do that towards the end of the slideshow when I've finished. I will. Thank you for asking that question. Okay, so we're back to the South Node in Scorpio. And then it's so releasing over concern with other people's business, releasing impatience and inappropriate intensity, because Scorpio can be very intense, and past life, you know, as well. So it's about judgmental tendencies, a preoccupation with the psychological motivations of others also. Really look at that. It's really important to, you know, the whole point of astrology is to objectify our lives. It's not so much about making predictions about, you know, what's going to happen, the exact things that are going to happen. We're souls on a journey. So we want to objectify our lives. And this information allows us to objectify, to then see our lives and then to evolve the issues we have and to live the life we want as well. Then we need to also watch the resistance to cooperating with others' wants. So if, you know, we need to cooperate with others and stop overreacting, and also the destroying, you know, be aware of destroying something in order to eliminate one part of it. And hopefully that makes sense. I've done that myself, where I'll want to just, you know, my Scorpio tail will come out, and South Node in Scorpio, but also Scorpio rising, where I'll just want to annihilate something, you know, not more inwardly in my thinking, you know, to sort of eliminate, instead of eliminating one part of it, I want to eliminate the whole thing. So also obsessive compulsive tendencies can, you know, need to be looked at here. So the next slide is, if you have your North Node in Gemini or in the 3rd house, and your South Node will be in Sagittarius or the 9th house. So we have here we are integrating and understanding that there are different ways of getting to the truth. There's not just one way. And it's about learning how to communicate. And this means asking people questions that lead to deeper questions that you can then elaborate on. We need healthy curiosity with this placement with the North Node in Gemini. You know, we need to sort of get into healthy curiosity, asking questions to learn how other people think, and to learn to see both sides of a situation, you know, to release any dogma and to see both sides of a situation. And then we have to master, you know, to learn to master and use logic and communication of the internal world, cultivate a positive approach to life and others, and using a non-threatening approach when expressing ideas. And this is important to take on board as well. Listening is really important with the North Node in Gemini, and being open to new ideas and experiences, and seeking factual information before making decisions. So to really look at things before you make a decision, instead of just making a decision. Here you would have the South Node in Sagittarius or the 9th house. And this is about, here would have been about exploring the nature of life and the bigger questions, being intuitive and trusting intuition. You would have had a sense of annihilation or being alone because of one's own deep truth, because you would have really known the deep truth. So you would have been, you know, quite a loner. Here we have been a seeker of knowledge, a traveler, a curious, you know, being curious and a wanderer. You've had a love of knowledge, and for instance, like, you know, surfing the internet for hours and hours, or reading books and seeking information and looking at philosophy. With this placement, that, you know, there's a love of books and all, you know, information basically. One can think they don't need to communicate this information. So one can just think they collect all of this information, but they don't need to communicate it. And they can be some fundamentalism and being pushy on beliefs. And this is past life stuff as well. Watch out for watch out for any arrogance, you know, I'm right and you're wrong, that sort of attitude. The way out of this is to, if we ask people questions, then we can stop, you know, the arrogance in there. What's interesting, I have my Pluto's in the 9th house, and my polarity is in the 3rd house. So with my 9th house Pluto, I can be, you know, I got a lot of information. So I've had to learn to ask people questions instead of just, you know, giving out information. So it's similar to this, you know, it's similar really to the North Node here as well. Different, the planets are doing different things, but, you know, the understanding of it. You know, we need to make sure that the needing to be right, not taking others' views into account. So it's important to take other people's views into account, not taking oneself too seriously, to learn to act on intuition and not just acting, you know, we don't need all of the facts to act on our intuition. Important to realize that. Resistance of communication and interaction because of one's belief system. So, you know, we don't want to be so dogmatic that we have our belief systems and that we don't communicate with anybody. We want to get way away from that. Now, next one. Any questions there? Somebody said David Bowie has a Gemini North Node. Yes, oh, that's beautiful to know. Beautiful man as well. And yes, if we look at his North Node, I wonder what house it was in. Do you know what house his Gemini North Node was in? If you know, that would be lovely to know. We have, and also I'm a Gemini Sun, Gemini Moon, so I sort of get the air of the Gemini North Node as well, and asking questions. So now we have the North Node in Cancer in the 4th house and the South Node in Capricorn in the 10th house. So if you've got that, then what we've got here is that if you've got the North Node in Cancer of the 4th house, you're learning through social repetition. You are learning to self-nurture, remembering one's own emotional reality and inner security needs. You've got to remember that here, and knowing what your own emotional reality is about. So you really need to get in touch with your own emotional reality. You need to notice and validate your own feelings. You need to have empathy and nurture also, and supporting of others will be quite natural to you with this placement, but you need to build your own foundation and security as well. Here we need to be honest of disclosure of our feelings and insecurities. So it's learning to feel safe, sharing and disclosing our feelings and insecurities to people that are close to us, clearly. It's about having humility, accepting others, and one's own fluctuating moods without judgment, because if you've got this placement, it's in the house of waters, so you're going to fluctuate with your moods, and we have to accept these things about ourselves as well. And then to stay centered in one's own feelings with this placement, allowing the mothering energy in, and step away, not totally, but step away from duty, order, structure, and stepping into one's heart, into the happiness and into caring and sharing with that placement. You'll have the South Node in Capricorn if you have the North Node in Cancer in the 4th house. So here we have had this South Node, you've had heavy conditioning around emotional suppression. You've had to take a lot of responsibility, and you've been heavily burdened in the past. Here you would have been ambitious, conscientious, and a rule follower, and followed a structured life that was authoritarian. There could have been a lot of self-dislike here, and a dislike of self, and a lot of depression, and like the feeling of the weight of the world being on one's shoulders, and thinking that one is not good enough as well, needing to control everything and everyone with the South Node in Capricorn, the compulsion to take charge without fully understanding a situation. So before you take charge of a situation, learn to sort of really see what the situation is about. We don't have to get involved in everything that comes our way. You can also ignore the process and be too focused on the goals. So it's like you're so focused on a goal that you're ignoring the process of reaching that goal, and that can bring in a lot of hardship as well. Feeling completely responsible for everything needs to be addressed, because if you've got the North Node in Cancer, you want to step away from feeling that you're responsible for everything. You learn to stop hiding feelings and fears in intimate relationships, doing things to gain respect or admiration from others. Look at that. Am I doing this for me, or am I doing it because I want to gain respect and admiration for others? We're here in our own birthright. We're each individual souls. We don't need to prove ourselves to other people, so to speak, in all situations. Clearly some we have to in society, but we need to be balanced in that. Also doing what is socially acceptable rather than what is totally honest. So we don't have, sometimes be honest with yourself. It's like we don't have to do something just to be socially acceptable. We need to dig deep on that one. Also thinking that things have to be difficult in order to be important. So remove the idea that something has to be difficult to be important. And next slide, we're going to go to North Node in Leo. 5th house and South Node in Aquarius in the 11th house. Here it's about validating ourselves and our creativity. And here we need to find where we belong and our own special destiny, and to integrate that, like find your special destiny. What is it? Really figure that out. This is about individuality and the willingness to take a stand and shine, following one's heart and one's heart's desires, strengthening one's ways and having powerful enthusiasm, having the self-confidence and taking risks. Because with this placement in Leo, although the sun can shine, very bright, and it's our will, so to speak, it's who we are, we can also feel, we're worried about what other people think of us. We can be insecure. So we need to know that and look at that in ourselves. Here we can relate to the childlike quality in ourselves and others. And this is a placement is about enjoying life and having fun and looking at life as a bit of a game, because it is, in a way, we're all sort of in this drama of life. And, developing a healthy attitude, saying it's up to me attitude. If I want a good life, then it's up to me. We don't have to seek outside ourselves so much. And then with this placement, the North Node in Leo, you're also going to have the South Node in Aquarius, or the 11th house. And this is where you have given into peer pressure in order to belong. It's where you have detached from emotional situations, and you've waited for others to prompt your own actions, and overlooking what's really going on as well. You would have been waiting for more knowledge before taking action. There would have been excessive daydreaming, running away from confrontations, and a lifetime of being in a tribe or a group. And it would have all been about what was best for the other, what's best for the group, and group perspectives. And you would not have been validating yourself. So you need to, with the North Node in Leo, it's about self-validation. You know, you don't have to wait for somebody else to validate you. Validate yourself, your brilliance. Aquarius here is about being revolutionary, initiative, compassionate in groups, free-spirited, and involved in events that help humanity. Here one has been years ahead of the game and making the world a better place. An electric mind. Leave behind serial detachment, living in the head, being lost in future dreams, to learn the Leo, the lion, compassion, and with yourself as well, not just with others. It's about overcoming detachment and learning to go from the heart, you know, going from the head to the heart. So go to your heart with this placement. Okay. And I'm going to read the North Node in Virgo in 6, and then I'm going to show you something a bit deeper on a chart, which is really important when you're looking at your North Node and South Node. So now we have here is about showing up, being present. So this is the, let's go. North Node in Virgo, 6th house, South Node in Pisces, 12th house. So here is about showing up. It's about being present and standing up for yourself if you've got the North Node in Virgo in the 6th house. And if you recall, I said that I've got my North Node in Taurus in my 6th house. So the North Node in Taurus applies to me, but also does the North Node in Virgo because it's in the 6th house. So here is about showing up, being present, standing up for yourself. It's about self-analysis is the theme, and it's participating, bringing order to chaos, creating routines, focusing on the here and now, acting on feelings of compassion, being of service to others, analyzing and categorizing, gaining self-confidence through experience, and in moderation. It's about moderation as well. It's taking risks in spite of our fears and noticing and valuing the details, you know, which is a lovely thing to do because we're all so busy, and in that many of us don't, you know, bother to notice the details of the beauty that's around us, as an example. With this placement, you would have the South Node in Pisces, or the 12th house. So again, my Scorpio South Node is in my 12th house. So again, this applies to me. So here we are answering the bigger questions in life through connection and deep devotion. We have experienced deep sacrifice and overwhelmed by the nature of life. Here we've had past lives where we have had much removed from us and no capacity to know what to do. And here we have an old soul, a sense of being here before and knowing there is a better place, a better way, a better place. And also karmic knowledge of deep spirit, compassionate, escapist, and it can be living in dreams as well. We need to get away from that. You know, these are things that we need to really look at. You know, we're integrating the North Node and the South Node. We're not getting rid of something, we're integrating, we're taking the good bits, we're evolving, we're looking at ourselves, we're objectifying. So here with the South Node in Pisces, where you've got addictions, escapism, martyrdom, suffering, and letting others do what they want. We have to watch out for that, being a victim or having a victim consciousness, and about being confused and disorientated, bringing ourselves back down to earth, you know. Here we can have avoidance of planning, escapism, addictive tendencies, drugs, alcohol, excessive sleep, daydreaming, extremism, oversensitivity and self-doubt, feelings of inadequacy, withdrawal and vagueness, not wanting to commit forward and giving up, you know, like I just give up, because the 12th house Pisces is complete surrender. Yeah, very deep stuff astrology is when we look at it. There can be an attitude of I don't care and just suffer. I don't care anymore. I'm just going to give up. Now it's about, you know, now we need to take care of our worldly things. We need to move to that North Node in the 6th house and look after the worldly things and come back down to earth and take control of our physical life. Okay. Any questions? Had a look? No, I can't see. Okay. So next we have, right, so back to the chart. And what I'm showing you now is that we've got, you remember I said that I've got my north node with the pointer in Taurus and my south node is in Scorpio. The thing that you want to add on when you're looking at astrology is in evolutionary astrology, we look at Pluto and then we look at the polarity and then we look at the north node and the south node. So we'd look at anything conjunct our nodes, which are very important. The nodes, the south node, I've got Neptune conjunct my south node on my AC. So that's, you know, there's a deep symbol there that needs to be addressed and looked at. And then also I've got my north node in my Taurus on my DC. So what we're going to look at here is I've got my north node in Taurus. So what is the ruler? This is the question we're going to ask ourselves when we're looking at our astrology. What is the ruler? Where is the ruler of my north node? So north node in Taurus, the ruler of Taurus is Venus. So we can see that that's how I'm going to, you know, act out and acquire that north node. Although it's the north node is in Taurus, the way I'm going to go about acquiring those qualities is through the Venus, which is in Aries. So, and I do that. I'm into creativity, my needs, you know, my need to be creative, my need to be on YouTube right now, my need to be making slideshows and speaking, and, you know, it's all in my north node. It all can be seen. It's beautiful. And my south node is in Scorpio. So then we'd look at, you know, past life. The ruler of my south node is Pluto. So we can begin to see such deep stuff in astrology, but I'm not going to go into that deeply now. That's for another video. Somebody said there, Ingrid said, very good. I have north node in Virgo in the second house. Okay, brilliant. So what you would do, Ingrid, is that you would look at your north node in Virgo, and then you would also look at the north node in Taurus and you integrate them. That's what you would do. And then what I'm just explaining here is that you would then look at your north node if it's in Virgo, and the ruler of your north node in Virgo is going to be Mercury. So you look at where Mercury is in the chart, and then we bring in all the aspects, and, you know, we start looking at all of the aspects to the nodes, and, you know, if we got anything squaring the nodes, for instance, because then we've got something called skipped steps, which can sound a bit scary, but it's not. It's just another way of understanding ourselves, digging deeper. Okay. Right. So I hope that with the aspects, I just wanted to say to the person, I think it was, can't see there, Abra, I'm saying that short for short. You said, would I look at the aspects? I think the aspects, we'll do another video for that, because aspects are quite deep on the nodes. And if you wanted, Abra, if you wanted to send me your chart, maybe we could pull up your chart and look at your aspects on a video. If you would like that, you could email me your chart. My email's below, and we could pull up your chart on the screen, and we could look at your aspects to your north node, if you would like, or the nodes. Okay, next slide. Now we have the north node in Libra and the south node, north node in Libra or the 7th house, and then we have the south node in Aries or the 1st house, okay? And this is about, so this, I love this picture. So the picture is that with Libra, people think it's often about balance, but what it really is about learning to balance, because it's about relationships. And, you know, we reflect, we mirror each other, and it's about learning to be balanced in our interactions with each other, and, you know, being graceful and stuff like that. So north node in Libra in the 7th house is about interacting and integrating. It's about cooperating, being diplomatic and tactful, increasing one's awareness of others' needs. It's about other, not just about other, but we can look at that, and being aware of selflessness, giving of support without expecting, you know, reciprocity, if I said that correct. So, you know, giving support, not always expecting, you know, equal back. It's like, you know, doing something for somebody, giving somebody a hand, you know, and then not expecting back. So it's about creating win-win situations. It's about sharing, seeing things through the eyes of another, and it's about communicating as well. And with this, what would happen then is we'd have the south node in Aries in the 1st house. And here we have been answering one's own questions in life. It's about, we would have been pioneering, a leader, doing it our own way. It would have been about self-leadership skills, being the warrior and maturing. You would have matured very early, in past life, and you would have had the ability to overcome those things, needing to be right, impulsiveness, thoughtless, self-assertion. So think about this. If you as an example, the ruler of the South Node, Aries, the ruler of Aries is Mars. So we can see that, it's like very direct. The needing to be right, impulsiveness, thoughtless, self-assertion, the lack of awareness of other needs in past lives, self-centeredness, and lack of good judgment regarding money, it says here, and then expecting others to be like oneself. So expecting everyone to be like you. So we don't want to do that. We want to allow people to be them, be themselves, and integrate with each other. Getting to the North Node in Libra, interest it to how one is seen by indifferent. You would have been indifferent to how one is. You want to be indifferent to how one is seen by others. Resistance to compromise, outbursts of anger. So think again, Aries, Mars, that anger that we can have in us, over concern with survival as well. And again, Mars, it's about survival, baseline. We want to live, we want to survive. Now I'm going on to the North Node in Scorpio. Okay, I like this picture. I've got there, somebody's asking a question, so let's have a look. That would be cool. Okay, so Abra, do that. If you would like me to look at your chart, I'm happy to do that. You just need to connect in with me via email or something. Ingrid says, Penelope, how can we trust that moving towards the North Node is the best path for us? Well, it's a lot of, I would say that, when I got into this very deep, it's very deep. What astrology really is, it's deep psychology. So we have a symbolism on a chart where the planets landed at birth, and then we have our aspects. So what I learned to do was that I began to, what Jeff Wolf Green teaches is objectify and with correlation, observation. So when we look at our lives and we look at what's going on, for instance, at the moment, I've got Saturn moving through my second house, Capricorn with Pluto. And, I can see where I've had losses and where I've changed my value system and stuff like that. So we just need to really understand our chart by really looking at it. And then we're questioning ourselves. So it's not so much how do we know we're moving towards it, because also it's going to be activated through life, and each of us has a different level of conscious understanding. So it doesn't mean that people are better or not better. It's just that each soul is on their own journey, and we're going to have, again, evolutionary astrology teaches, we've got consensus reality, which is the majority. Then we have, the spiritual state, and then we have other states where different people at different points on the wheel of life or as a soul. So we have to look at those aspects as well. But again, it would be the totality of a chart, Ingrid. That's the other thing I'd like to point out. And then Ingrid says, I ask that because moving away from religious conditioning makes me fear I will lose support and will walk away to learn that I should have, I can't see, never left. Well, I think, there is, what we've got to understand is that religious indoctrination, there was a point in time when people, it was natural law, again, evolutionary astrology, natural law. So we would not have been really worshipping something outside ourselves, and we would have been on earth if we go back in time, thousands of years. Religion as it is now, as we know it, came in much later, and can be a lot of guilting and shaming, and in spirituality as well, there can be a lot of guilting and shaming, unnecessarily so. God, to me, and whatever that means to me, is inside myself, and it's something that's of love, and it's unconditional, and it's beautiful, and it would not harm me, and it's not doing anything to me, it just is. If we go to the depths of the ocean, Ingrid, to the smallest, teeniest thing that exists, that none of us even know what that is, the teeniest, smallest thing on this planet, we don't know what it is. And then we go out to the furthest infinite space, and we keep going and going and going. We know very little. So we could say that belief systems are belief systems, and that we need to do what's right for us. I'm not against religion, but we have to look at our own reality, and then in a chart we can see where we're at. It's like, to put the fear of God into somebody, that if I don't feel, this is almost obsessive compulsive. I'm not saying you, but where people believe, if I don't believe that, then something bad's going to happen to me. We need to look at that belief, because ultimately there is no separation, even if we believe in a source God or we don't. And then what we're calling God, or what we call God, because it's going to be different for every different soul on this planet. That's, it's something that we feel. We can't define what it is. And that's, people argue over that, what God is, but we can't, people do it, but how can we do that? We really don't know the bigger questions, but we do feel subjectively what God is, and each of us will experience that differently. And some people don't experience it at all. Okay, I hope that answered your question, Ingrid. Now, North Node in Scorpio. We've got North Node in Scorpio in the 8th house, South Node in Taurus in the 2nd house. So here you're learning to become available. It's to be secure in your own energy and abundance, and knowing that there is infinite abundance that you can access at any point in time. For instance, like there's always trees somewhere in the world where there are fruits growing that we have access to at any time, as an example. Baseline. Thank you, Ingrid. I'll keep going. So then here we are learning to share. So Scorpio, North Node, 8th house, we're learning to share. Sharing is caring and learning to integrate into the whole. And it's about harnessing self-discipline. It's choosing constructive change, releasing whatever causes stagnation and low energy. It's really looking at that, because the ruler of Scorpio is Pluto. Looking at non-useful possessions, like look at them. What's non-useful, do we need it? It's like we can release it. It's about enjoying things without having to own them, and accepting support from others, ideas, money, and opportunities. Like if you watch yourself, accept it. If somebody's offering to help you. Enjoying high-risk situations that make one feel alive. That's okay with Scorpio in the 8th house. Safety, of course, comes to this point when you're risk-taking. Awareness of others' psychology, because this is about psychology, the 8th house, it's about others, it's about merging the depths. Awareness of others' psychology, their desires, their needs, and their motives. And it's being open to partnering, supporting, and merging in power with others. And that's, beautiful, Scorpio is to me. I'm Scorpio rising as well, so I get a lot of that understanding. And now we're going to look at the South Node, which will be in Taurus in the 2nd house. Here, you would have had your own resources and feelings of security, and you wouldn't have required help, but you would have had skills of being practical, tactile, positive, and creative with the South Node in Taurus. You would have been an artistic soul, being attached to comfort. So there would have been attachment to comfort and possessiveness as well. And you would have been concerned with the accumulation and ownership with this. And even emotionally, we've got to look at this. It's not just about ownership in the sense of owning a land or property, the ownership of others. We've got to watch out for that. You could be here stubborn, feelings of being stuck as well. And Jeff Wolf Green calls it the frog in the well syndrome. So that the frog in the well doesn't get to see anything, so you can be like rigid and stuck in your ways, but then you can end up being like a frog in a well and you just don't go anywhere. So doing things the hard way, even though there are easier ways. So look at that. If you've got the North Node in Scorpio, you want to make sure that you're not doing things the hard way just because you're stubborn and you want to do it your way. Resistance to change and others' input. So watch out for that as well. Okay, we're getting there. So now I'm doing Sagittarius, North Node in Sagittarius and the 9th house. And here I got a picture of the sky, because, the Sagittarius is the wanderer, the nomad, the, collecting in all the knowledge. Like if we look out to the stars, you think of all of that knowledge out there and just so much unknowing, and it goes on forever and ever, infinite, how beautiful that is. Like all of the knowledge and all of the knowledge we all contain individually, and the knowledge of like the cell in a body, like all of our DNA, all of the knowledge within that, it's incredible being human. And so I'll read this. North Node in Sagittarius, the 9th house. It's learning to ask, what is my personal belief system? And it's asking questions that allow us to share knowledge held within. So if you want to share something with somebody else with the North Node in Sagittarius, you know, ask people a question, you know, what do you know about astrology, for instance? Instead of me, you know, I'm 9th house Pluto, so I've got this thing where I'll just blabber, but I get a lot more satisfaction when I say, oh, what do you know about astrology? Or where is your, you know, house plate, where's your North Node and stuff like that. So learn to ask questions. So then you can share your information instead of just giving people information and boring them, so to speak. Okay, so to ask questions that allow us to share knowledge held within, reliance on intuition, prophetic abilities, I think I've said that right, abilities and invisible guidance, speaking from your higher consciousness, spontaneity, developing a sense of freedom and adventure, communication and censorship free. Don't, you know, it's but not about censorship. It's like the message that Ingrid just asked me, you know, not cutting people off and being dogmatic. It's like, you know, let's look at this, let's look at it, censorship free. Let's really look at something. What is God? What does that mean? And what does it mean to us? Also, so North Node in Sag is trusting oneself, spending time alone in nature. And it's about patience, being intuitive, listening, hearing others, hearing and asking what others think. It's about being talkative, communicative, versatile, nonconformist and charming, and good at multitasking, speedy on information, and being able to see things in a way that others don't as well. Here we need to release mindless multitasking, skirting the truth and being vague, and delaying in answers. So watch out for that in yourself if you have this. To learn to say what one means and meaning what one says. To release second guessing of what others are thinking. So the best way to get over second guessing is to ask people outright. You know, just ask people, what do you mean? What does that mean? And then also we will need to watch out for indecisiveness, perpetually seeking more information just for the sake of it. We need to, you know, and also look at just, you know, don't just say what others want to hear, you know, also, you know, honor yourself. Move away from invalidating your intuitive knowledge with logic. Release gossiping, impatience, and wanting immediate answers. We don't know that we can't have immediate answers with anything, so we need to watch that too. And then we need to take into account other people's perceptions, because we've all got different ways of seeing and looking at things. So this would mean that you would have the South Node in Gemini or your 3rd house. So here you would have had people answering the questions for you or for us. It would have been a time of asking other people what they think. You know, what do you think? What do you think of this? And we wouldn't have been able to answer our own questions for ourselves. It would have been about indecisiveness, a time when one would, you know, also saying what others wanted to hear. And you would have been invalidating one's own intuitive knowledge with logic. So instead of, you know, looking at your own intuitive knowledge, you would have started to get logical about it. Here you would have had impatience and wanting immediate answers and trusting others instead of one's own perceptions, and a time of constantly seeking more information to release. So release multitasking also, because where it's not mindful. So I hope that helps. I'm just going to look at the message and then I'll go on to the 10th house. I've got here, what is the difference between the North Node and Pluto polarity point? Okay, that's probably, Ingrid, that's probably another video, but I'll explain that a bit at the end. I'm going to read the 10th, 11th and 12th, and then I'll come back to your question. And Abri says, I've Sagittarius North Node, needing to ask questions is true. I don't. Okay, so that's where we learn. So we don't want to punish ourselves, Abri, for not being a particular way. I've got my Pluto in my 9th house on my MC. So I used to just, you know, tell people that I knew everything. So now I've learned to not do that. Not that I did tell people I knew everything, but somebody would say something and I'd say, oh, I know, which is a bit arrogant. Now I, you know, engage more. I ask people questions and I get into a lot less, you know, sort of problems by asking questions as well. Something I've had to learn. We learn it, yeah. It's not something we're born with, you know, this, we have to objectify and learn about who we are. That's the whole point of astrology, to objectify so that we get to live out in a easier way. So now we've got the North Node in Capricorn, 10th house, and the South Node in Cancer in the 4th house. So here goes. So the North Node in Capricorn, if you have this, here we are learning that security comes through direction. It's about being our own authority, being responsible, and inviting, being our own father. It's being our own father, our own authority, and learning self-control. So it's, this is what the North Node in Capricorn 10th house means. It's taking on life from an adult position and having self-respect, being goal-orientated. You want clear approaches to problem solving with this placement, and learning to keep commitments and promises, letting go of the past, and caring and accepting responsibility for your success, as well. To be straight with information and saying what one means. Really important to say what you mean. And we're safe to do that in the world, the South Node in Cancer in the 4th house was about security, was in nurture, protection, and community. That would be your imprint, your memory, yeah? Being emotional, motherly, executive ability, patriotic, orderly, positive as well. Wanting to care for everyone with the South Node in Cancer. You wouldn't want to care for everybody. You want to leave behind smothering and neglecting one's own needs and retreating from problems. Look at that in yourself. Wearing too many masks to please everybody would have been your past life. And you've still got that imprint. This is the South Node. We've all got this. We've got our imprints we've come in with. Leave behind suffering, dependence, moodiness, insecurity that leads to inaction. Look at it deeply. Limiting self through fear, and stop using the past to avoid the present. And the isolation, spending too much time alone. Watch out for that if you do that. And the avoidance of personal risks. And watch out for controlling others' emotional overreactions as well. Okay. So next slide. Okay, so now we have the North Node in Aquarius, the 11th house, and the South Node in Leo. And what we have here is that here we're learning one's path is to find special destiny in group settings. Okay, the 11th house is about groups, and Aquarius is about breaking free of limitations as well in groups. And it's also, it's about how we show up, making decisions for the group's best interest, the willingness to share our unconventional ideas, being humanitarian, and it's about humanitarian causes, recognizing others are special, that others are special, and about equality. It's about relating to others from all walks of life and being for the people from all walks of life. It's about, being humble and think of being humanity first. We are looking at the bigger picture with this placement. And it's about building bridges for the future for all of us together. It's very important to understand. And learning to shine within groups. So you're going to learn to shine within a group and being objective and seeing how we can fit into the groups and not needing the spotlight on us solely. If with this placement, it's about active participation in groups, and it's saying yes to equality. Yes, this is what we want in society, to some equality going on, that we're all souls, we're all equal, we're all born, we're all going to not be here one day, we're all going to die. So, we need to have equality on this planet. Relating to others as individuals and, not just their specific roles. So individually, it doesn't matter what we are, whether we're a doctor, a psychiatrist, like an astrologer or whatever, really creating win-win situations in this placement and recognizing how others are special, really important here too. So if you've got this North Node in Aquarius, then you would, in the 11th house, then you've got your South Node in Leo in the 5th house. And here is where you have followed your destiny in the past and had the awareness of how to find it, past life. And you would have had qualities of vitality, being courageous, energetic, and charisma, and shining like the sun. You would, ruling the world. Yeah, Leo, the sun. And here we want to leave behind vanity, entitlement, any vanity and arrogance. It's all right to have some of these aspects in us to integrate, but we need to look at ourselves. Am I being arrogant, entitled? Am I acting as though I'm entitled? Or, asking ourselves questions, objectifying. Also making changes just to exercise authority. I'm going to fire you so I can have your job, or stuff like that. Not a great example, but get my drift. It's about an attachment to taking risks in romance or gambling. There can be an attachment to that. I'm going to risk this, an example, like I've got Venus in Leo in the fifth, I've got Venus in Aries in the fifth house. So, you know, I take risks. In romance, I sort of, it's quite interesting when we begin to look at the totality of a chart and we've been, integrated all. Here we can be willful and stubborn, but we are talking about the South Node in Leo at the moment, throwing in other planets there. So this is about an attachment to the need for approval. So get rid of the attachment for the need of approval. You know, we don't need approval to validate ourselves. And also we don't need approval from others. You know, if we're a decent, genuine, good human being, we don't need approval of other people. We can just live our lives. You know, here we could have been a dramatic tendencies, the Leo, the king, yeah, Leo, the lion. Here it's about following one's own heart. So, still take that quality into the North Node in Aquarius. You can take that following your own heart into the group, yeah, the passion of going to extremes, unaware of others' importance. So, main thing, Leo, past life, South Node, you want to integrate other people's importance and get rid of any prideful responses based on fear. Okay, next one here, I'm going to see who's left a message. Ingrid saying, very valuable insights to gain clarity and balance. Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to remember after I've read this, Ingrid, I want to look at your question that you asked me about Pluto and the polarity. We'll go back to that. I'll have to look again what the question was. I've got it in not quite in my head. So then last but least, we've got the culmination of the entirety. The 12th house is the culmination of the entire chart. The North Node in Pisces, 12th house, and South Node in Virgo, the 6th house. So here, this is what you're doing, okay? And the North Node in Pisces, or the 12th house, here we are learning about self-forgiveness, we're learning about self-acceptance, and to go with the flow, to integrate into consciousness. Here is the theme, is to learn to be non-judgmental. You know, we want to be careful with our descriptions on these things as well. You objectify your own lives. You don't take things written in stone. You look at your life and you think, to have compassion and compassion for self also. So it's learning about having compassion for self. To begin to learn to surrender any anxiety to a higher power, whatever that is, whatever name we give it. We can free the mind through meditation and self-reflection. And if you wish, there's other ways of doing that. People can go for a run, you can go running to free your mind and self-reflect. It doesn't have to be meditation. We can contemplate. We can do gardening and do that. There's so many different things. How we can meditate is not just one way. A harnessing of focusing on the spiritual pathway with the North Node in Pisces in 12, and trusting in positive outcomes, and acknowledging the connection with the universe and source and synchronicity. Carl Gustav Jung. I had a meeting with somebody the other day on this 12th house, a 12th house placement I have, and the 12th house is the totality of the chart, and it is the work of Carl Gustav Jung. Like, it's going into the abyss. It's deep, deep, deep. Our dreams and the other realms and all that's unknown. And what we need to do, though, with this placement is go to the South Node. Integrate the South Node in Virgo in the 6th house. Okay, so here we've been of service, humble. It's been about wanting to help others, deep self-analysis. There can be guilt here and a lot of judgment and self-criticism. So we need to look at that. Anxiety reactions and any overanalyzing and the OCD, the obsessive and worrying, exaggerating the importance of details. We need to get away from that. Having crisis and critical first reactions of being afraid and finding fault and making others wrong. We want to move away from that. Excessive anxiety over mistakes. We need to release that. The natural law is that we don't need to, have anxiety. This is first time for all of us, not, on a soul level, not first time, but in this life, this moment, this second today. This is my first time in this moment, this second today. Also, get rid of the need to be perfect. Imperfection, perfection. Think of the planets flying through space right now, the imperfection, perfection within the totality. Staying in unpleasant situations, we need to look at that, and any inflexibility we have. being health conscious, a worker, methodological, doing work perfectly. We don't need to be perfect in order to execute something. Like I'm on this video tonight, you know, and people could look at this and find fault or whatever, or I could look back and find fault. We don't need to do that. We just need to be ourselves. Like a flower is itself, or a tree in the wind, flexibility. Learn to leave behind self-criticism, self-hatred, victimization, being overly anxious. And also it's about dietary issues as well. A depreciation of self, look out for that. You don't have to be perfect, you know, let that belief go. You know, we need to, in society, we really need to let go of that. And we've got that far more because of stuff like Instagram and all the filters. You know, we sort of, I have to be perfect to present myself to the world. Well, we don't, okay? Because there's beauty in every single one of us. Even where there's some really hard people in this world that are, you know, there's beauty in every single one of us. Leave behind obsession with perfection. The world is imperfect, and not to be hard on ourselves. So big message here, isn't it, with the South Node in Virgo, and standing up and seeing things clearly and looking after ourselves and seeing the bigger picture. So what have we got? Any more questions? Well, somebody's saying hello to me. Somebody else is saying, hello, hope I am well. Don't know who that is. Okay. So let's say I'm going to stop share. I'm going to come off screen. Let's see, and I'm here. I don't know if you can see me now. Let's see if you can see me. And if I got so many tabs open, I'm great with these things. I am Gemini Sun, Gemini Moon, and my tab situation is pretty busy. So let's see if anybody can see me. Okay, yeah, I'm checking myself out in the camera as well. Because now I can see myself. There you go, perfection, imperfection. We've all got to let go of that. So I think the question was, Ingrid, can you throw that one at me again? Let's have a look. You said something, or I'll scroll back. You said, let's see, what have you said there to me? You said, I asked the question, I'm looking for your question, Ingrid. What is the difference between the North Node and Pluto polarity point? Well, the nodes, Pluto is to do with our subconscious. It's the work of Carl Gustav Jung. Evolutionary astrology, you know, it's very in-depth. It's psychology. It's not, you know, we're not looking to the planets aren't doing anything to us. There was something on Yoganda, the autobiography of the yogi, like, you know, the stars, outwitting the stars. There's a chapter in chapter 16, a beautiful part on understanding that what the stars mean. You know, this is energy, like we're going to see over the next week. I'll go deeper on Pluto, Ingrid. I've got other videos. Maybe I'll send you one if you can connect in with me on Facebook, that will help you, or I can email it to you, because it's a very deep subject. And I've got Pluto's videos on Pluto, and I know other people that have done some great work on Pluto as well, that I can forward to you to understand what Pluto is in the chart. What I would say is that we've got Mercury going retrograde coming up, and we've got a full moon in Scorpio tomorrow, and it's going to be at 4 degrees. So you can look at where Scorpio is in your chart, and the moon, the moon, new moon, will affect your life for the next month. So you want to look at where that is. There's other things going on with aspects, you know, like we've got an opposition of the moon to Uranus. And I haven't looked at the chart today, but, you know, I know Uranus is in the picture, and that's about breaking free of limitations and shocks and things. So we can really go deep with astrology. And I think that each of us can really get to grips to know ourselves. So it's a really useful tool to look at our own trauma. And as it can be seen in all charts, the trauma, the imprints that we struggle with, our anxiety, our self-doubts, our fears. So I just really encourage anybody out there to, you know, even if you don't get somebody to read your chart, which I do, and I sit with people and I do Zoom meetings with people, I would say get your own chart, and there are resources out there where you can begin to look at your chart, you know, if you don't know it. So do definitely begin to dig in deep, because it is a form of psychology. In the 1500s, we had Nostradamus, and he would have, in 1555, he wrote a book that's never been out of print. And Nostradamus made predictions based on astrology. And at the same time, in the 1500s, we had Galileo, who was an astronomer, amongst other things, looking at the planets and the movements, and he was discovering planets. So, you know, we didn't have in the 1500s, we didn't have television, we didn't have aeroplanes, and people would have been sitting looking at the stars and the bigger picture. We wouldn't have had electricity. Just think of all the amazing things. And now we've got this resource where I'm talking to you, people are interacting with me all over the world, we're making friends with each other, we've got a support system. You know, this is a brilliant time to be alive. And also on January, I think it's the 12th or 13th, we've got the Pluto Saturn conjunction, which is the breakdown of patriarchy. You know, so however we look at, I'm not political at all, but however we look at it, it's actually very necessary what's going on right now. And also with the North Node transiting Cancer, it's the way we, you know, we look after ourselves and nurture each other. And we've all got that in a different house. It's happening for me in my 8th house. And so it affects me in a particular way. And my South Node is in my 2nd house with the Pluto and Saturn. So I've been, you know, looking at my values and my needs, and I've given certain things up. I, you know, had to walk away from a business. There have been losses, all sorts of things. Astrology is beautiful. So, you know, it's not about predicting these particular moments where we're going to have these highs. It's about really looking at our mind, because that is the most powerful thing we have, our consciousness. So I really thank everybody that's been with me here tonight. If you've got any questions, you can join me over on Facebook. And I'm going to be doing other videos a couple of times a week on astrology. So please, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe and let me know where, you know, you've got any questions, then go for it. That's it. I'm going to go now. Thank you. So anybody there, say goodbye to you all, and I'll catch you all later. Have a lovely rest of the day wherever you are. Thanks.